Okay, we're going to begin the inlay for the headstock. I'm going to start with a blank of mother of pearl. It's like a 1 by 2 inch blank, pretty much readily available in any guitar parts place. And I'm just going to draw out a little simple pattern here. I really want to keep this kind of simple. This is a diamond pattern because I'm going to show you sort of an old school kind of way of doing an inlay. If you have a real elaborate pattern, you want to use just a router and basically route out an area that it'll fit in and then fill it in. But I'm going to make this a little differently. We're going to start with a Dremel tool and just a cutting bit, and I'm going to use that to cut this mother of pearl out into just some basic shapes to make a pattern. And use the necessary caution with this. I'm just trying to give you a little idea here of how easy the mother of pearl cuts with this this kind of tool. And I'm going to start with this as sort of the center of this piece, and I'm going to make sort of a star pattern with the little excess pieces here that we have, these little triangular shapes. And this is kind of a rough idea of what the finished pattern is going to look like. Again, it's just sort of a star pattern that I want to put into the headstock and show you a basic approach to doing an inlay work. Now once you've got your pieces cut and you've kind of got it worked out how it's going to look, we'll move on to putting this onto the headstock. And I kind of just keep it on a scrap piece of wood like this, just to kind of keep everything oriented and know which part goes where. But I'm going to start here with the center line through the middle of the headstock. You may already have that line, but with sanding and everything, it usually goes away, so I'm just going to redraw it in here. And then I'm going to measure the midpoint of that line and draw a perpendicular to it, because I want to center this little star right in the middle of the headstock. You can see the marks we've got there. Now for this, I'm going to start with this center piece. It's the largest piece in the design. And again, sort of the old school way of doing this inlay is to put your piece in place. I'm kind of going to center it here. And then I'm going to score around it. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, just something with a really good sharp blade. And I'm just going to make a little score mark all the way around the outside edge here. And you want this as exact and tight against that piece as you can be. And if you have a large design, you may even want to put a little spray adhesive on the back of these just to hold them in place while you score them. Okay, so now I'm just going to take the razor knife and I'm just going to start to sort of dig out this outer edge that we just scored. Again, I'm just sort of tracing over this, and then I'm going to start to sort of dig out just along that inside edge. Because the idea here is to make some room for a chisel to get sort of your larger pieces in the middle there without going into that edge too much. And you just take out little chunks at a time. Don't try to do it all at once. And you can get a better idea here. Just little bitty bites is what you're after. And any kind of carving knife or of different size chisels might work better for you. Then once you've got the sort of the middle of it carved out, go back in and just re-emphasize those edges. Make sure you've got nice square cuts along those outer edges. And then when you get it pretty well, just start to test fit it. And you may have to just get it in there and feel where it's a little high, areas that you might need to touch up. You may need to make it a little deeper so that it'll be you don't want it completely flush. You want to be able to sand a little of it. This is still a little too high. I'm going to dig that out just a touch more and just chisel that out some. I want it to fit just a little bit better than it is. And we should have a little better fit here. And if it's having trouble going in, just get as many edges in as you can. And you may have to take your X-Acto knife and just score around it again. If there's any place, especially around the places that aren't going completely inside of the inlay. And then just use that knife and dress those up just a little bit. Now it fits a lot better. See that it's in there nice and tight. And then you want to keep moving along with the other pieces and just repeat this process. Put your piece in place, trace around it with an X-Acto knife, score the wood just slightly, and then dig it out until you've got a good fit. With real elaborate patterns, again, you would want to trace out your whole pattern, a really broad general outline of it, route it out with a router, and then glue in your inlay and use basically that sawdust mixed with some glue as a filler to fill in all the little details. That's a real sort of fast way of putting in an inlay. What I'm doing here, of course, it's it just requires a razor knife and a chisel. Not very complicated, very easy to do. But again, I would also keep your pattern pretty simple as well. I'm not doing anything terribly elaborate with this particular inlay. And then make sure as you go along that each piece is fitting well in the wood and up against the other pieces of the inlay. And then once you've got all the pieces carved out, we're going to take some super glue. There's a variety of different glues that you like that can work for this purpose. I tend to like the super glue personally. I'm going to go ahead and sort of get that glue all over the area there. I'm going to do the whole inlay at once here since it's a fairly small pattern. And there really shouldn't be any particular order that you need to put the pieces in. And you can start with the smaller pieces, the larger ones, whatever you prefer. Some of the large pieces, you can see I'm going to kind of tap them in and just make sure that they get seated against the wood really well. You don't want to catch any air in there or make it to where it's not completely flush. Just work your way around a piece at a time. And again, stubborn pieces, you might just want to tap them really, really lightly just to sort of get them to go into place. If anything, I think that's a sign of having a real good fit. And like I said earlier, if you choose to do a more elaborate shape and use a router, you'll find that you're going to do a lot of filling in with the sawdust and glue. With the process that I'm showing you here, you should have a really good fit, and you shouldn't have to do any filling. And you can see how you've got a nice fit. There's nothing really out of place there or any gaps that need to be taken care of. And I'm just going to push this in and make sure everything's seated really well. And with the super glue I'm using, it'll dry pretty quickly. And then once it's dry, I'm just going to take some pretty fine sandpaper, maybe like some 180 or some 220 grit, and just sand it to where it's completely flush with the headstock. And then you can clean it up, and just feel free to be creative and put whatever kind of design you like.